Hello and welcome to episode 498 of the Awesome Comics Podcast, the place where the small press makes one hell of a big noise. My name is Vince Hunt, and joining me as always is the creator of the comic series Vanguard, Dan Butcher.
Hello.
And it's only 2 sleeps away, Tony Esmond.
Fine, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's less than that, isn't it?
Yeah. Is it less? Wow.
Less than 2 weeks, Nick, because it's the Saturday, innit? We're recording Sunday.
Yeah. What are we talking about? Well, we're almost at episode 500, as you clearly know, because you just saw the title and I said the title of what number episode this is.
I said it twice again last week.
Yeah. Welcome to the show,
Dan will be talking about it later.
Yeah.
500.
We are starting 2025 strong, as always. We did last week, but now we're talking about a subject. We're going to be talking about crowdfunding a little bit, which is obviously it's an ongoing sort of thing in comics. It's like a permanent fixture of the small press and independent scene. But we wanted to just
it's evolving. There's an involvement.
It's
going
evolving,
on, isn't there?
So start of the year, we wanted to just discuss it. So we got the Green Archer guys, Alan and Ben Liska together, who may have done some work with Daniel Butcher.
Yeah.
Which is
and
seriously awesome. You need to see that. But
no, it's great. You guys haven't even seen it.
No, we've just seen a few pages here and there.
Yeah.
Looking great, mate. We're allowed to say that. Sorry, we're allowed to say that.
Yeah,
it's not a secret. Yeah.
Okay, you won't kill us, will you?
No. He will.
Alan
eventually.
Might. I won't.
Yeah. Wow. Oh God. He seems so nice, as you'll hear on the audio.
Full of good tips.
And there's a lot of discussion about just crowdfunding in general, content. So if you're a creator, I mean, there are some of our listeners who have done many a crowdfunder. There are some who are now they're getting ready to publish their comic first, and a crowdfunding campaign seems like the best way to go. And there's a few sort of tips and things to think about in this discussion. It's great. And so we'll get to that in a bit. We're just excited about comics at the moment, aren't we? We're very excited.
Early,
aren't we?
Very much so. I've had a hell of a weekend of just reading non-stop.
Yeah,
loved it, man. Yeah.
Me and Vince have been digging through the review copies.
We went down into the vault. We have to use our thumbprints and the eyeball scans, don't we, Dan, to get into the vault. And we sort through which we're gonna recommend some to lovely people later. Another thing we can recommend is our wonderful sponsor, Global Comics. Yes, that's comics with an X, people, and it's the best kind of X. Actually, what kind of X's are there? Well, X marks the spot.
X-rated.
That is Twitter, aka X.
Shut up, Dan.
No.
No one said that in.
No one said that. This is the X you want. Global Comics, the place to go to read your books digitally. If you're interested in reading titles from like hundreds of indie creators and publishers like Image, Boom, Tokyo Pop, TK Studios, Source Point Press, Dynamite, Humanoids, Mad Cave Comics, Dark Horse, and DC, a little outfit called DC, then you can on Global Comics, and the catalogue is growing every time. We do a small little highlight each week on what we've currently seen there or checked out. Chaps, what have you seen this week on GC?
Can I recommend? It's another long title. Long titles are the coolness at the moment, aren't they? When I Lay My Vengeance Upon Thee. It's from Boom. Yeah, lovely art, man. Really gorgeous art. Written by Gus Marino and art by Jacob Rebelka. Father Merrick Stygian. That's a fucking name, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Merrick Stygian. I watched a movie the other day, the villain, it was called Elliot Glastonbury.
Amazing.
Father Merrick, is that Exorcist? Father Merrick.
Father Merrick is... But is it Joseph Merrick? No, Joseph Merrick's the fucking elephant.
It's the first name, Merrick Stygian. And he's a sort of maverick exorcist. And he's old school, old dude, knows the game. Fucking... and he ends up taking on a new priest called Manuel Barrera, who's the new trainee. I don't think trainees last very long with him generally, and this dude's got a darkness in him as well.
Okay.
And the first issue come out, it's Day Date on Global actually, which is really nice. Day Date from Boom, as opposed to normally we say Mad Cave with Day Date, but it looks like Boom are doing some Day Date stuff. And the cover to issue 2 I put on the Slack this week. Fucking hell, that cover, man, really gorgeous. Yeah,
they're releasing some stuff on there that it's not out yet. Which I'll get on.
That's right.
Okay. I'll get onto one in a minute.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Dan, what about you? You got
Every
cheeky
time you
smile on your
say
face.
about one of those long comic names, it always makes me want to do that one I always talk about, but I'm not going to mention the title of it again. I checked out. You've got Batman '89.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Is that part of the
Batman
new dump
'89,
on
as
there,
as
is
we all know, is one of the greatest movie adaptations of all time.
Yeah, I was having to reconsider about like the Nolan Dark Knight sort of films. It's like I like these as the films, but they don't feel like
Apart
Batman.
from the third one.
Yeah, apart from the third one, they don't feel like Batman. Do you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
not got some
Yeah.
of the kind of the Batman '89 is like that's where it's at.
Yeah.
I've got a big thing about the Batman movies. I don't think this is very controversial.
Here we go.
I don't think any actor who's ever played Batman in a movie or a TV series has convinced me that they are the Batman I read in the comics.
Fair.
Yeah.
I'd say the only one who's got the voice of it is that Kevin. Is it Kevin Conroy?
Yeah.
The guy who does
Yeah,
that.
but, I mean that's
Sounds-
much later, isn't it?
That sounds
Yeah.
like the
Kevin
Batman,
Conroy is
like-
my Batman.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
sounds
Yeah,
like
the
Batman.
animated is the nearest I will
Yeah.
give you, but it's still not the it's
No.
an animated. It's
Yeah.
very much into that style. Now this is my other controversial idea. I think the only person who could ever have been the Batman I recognise as Batman, but was in the worst Batman film, was Clooney. I think Clooney would have made a good
okay.
Batman,
Interesting.
I'll tell you what.
but
For
it's
me,
a
it
terrible
would've been-
film. But
Yeah, it's terrible.
For me, Gregory Peck. He
Oh,
would have
okay.
just the classic old school.
could he throw a
sort of
punch?
Yeah, he was in what do you call it? Guns and Navarone. He could.
For me,
I
it's
saw a
for
documentary
me,
on
it's
Connery
James.
today. Did James always? I saw a documentary on Connery today, and some film expert said Sean Connery was the first film actor who could throw a punch. And I thought, no, that's not right.
Come on,
Yeah, what about Wayne? John Wayne?
they had loads of them. Yeah, there was like.
Dan's so upset right now. Come
Well,
on.
you had ex-military veterans in films. Like they could. I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure they could probably fucking kill people. But anyway,
Yeah, sorry.
also,
Sorry,
the
hang on.
comic that I'm going to be talking about in the recommends, I found out it's actually on Global Comics, so
Oh, right.
you can go and check it out after I've talked about it
Nice.
or before.
Nice. The one, just a quick mention for me is obviously Something is Killing the Children is one of my
Yeah.
favourite books at the moment. They're releasing the art of Something is Killing the Children.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah.
It is available on Global Comics. I didn't know. As I've added it to my wish list. The hardcover will be released January the 30th. And
Wow.
I have been going through this. This is like 208 pages. Now, normally I was expecting, I'm just going to look at some lovely sketches or like covers, and I would have been happy with that. But what I like about this book, there's a discussion. It's like, what when they
Director's commentary.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it's between the two creators, James Tinian and Werther Deladera. It's basically they're talking to each other about the actual creation of the characters and the way they look and the world, and so you're seeing sketches. You're actually seeing
that's cool. Yeah, that's
behind the
great.
scenes. It's like the great sort of like making of, those old making of movie books that we used to love getting, and like sometimes they're better than the movies.
Yeah.
And like for instance, I went to Chicago recently, obviously, and had a great time. And the House of Slaughter is in Chicago, and there was pictures of the artist taking a photo of a building that I stood outside and went, "That's a really cool building." Do you know what I mean? And it's just those little links, isn't it, that we see in comics and just think that's brilliant. I know that place. I recognise it. See all the notes. So it's actually it's really good just from if you're a creator looking at these sort of things. And there's beautiful covers. You can just see like it is a case of they created a character design, and every artist in the world is just having fun doing covers for it, because there's a bazillion variant covers for that. You can see this is okay. It's gone beyond the comic. Like a Hellboy design or all of these sort of things. You just think, okay, it's going beyond what it is. So yeah, the art of Something to Killing the Children. If you just want to see something glorious and see a bit of behind the scenes, it's well worth it. And,
It's good that it's early on there as well.
Yeah. Which really surprised me. I just thought, oh, this must be out now. I want to get the hard copy of this. Now I was like, hold on, it's not out for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think Prairie Gods, the first issue of that, the first two issues of that were early as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
New
That's
issue
awesome.
of that. Issue of that's just hit this week, I believe. Isn't
I
it?
think so. Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, looking forward to. getting that and talking a bit more about that series in the future. But stay tuned for that. Yeah, so with Global Comix, there's all of those books and more. You can read those, you can follow creators, set reading statement filters, release notifications for books that you follow. If you're a creator yourself, publish your digital comics on there, helps get the word out about all your books, and there's loads of great tools for creators. So whether you're a reader, creator, or maybe just someone new to the hobby, or maybe you just want to gift something to someone, gift them a Global Comix subscription. And it's the place to use. So to find out more, go to Global Comix, that's comicswithanex.com. You can download the app on the Apple App Store or Google Play and just get reading comics, people. That's all we want you to do. Read and discover comics, because that's what we do every week. And every week we talk about comics, all comics great and small, and the making of them. But perhaps you've made your book and now you're ready to put it out in the world. But how are you going to do that? Perhaps you're going to crowdfund it. Well, you want to know a little bit more about that.
Brave move.
It's a brave, you can't just jump into it willy-nilly.
Willy-ka-filly.
So if you want a little bit of advice or some things to think about, then let's kickstart our hearts. Yeah? Like that? Don't... Yeah, thank you.
Really
I'm
like
pointing at the camera.
Yeah, even if it's just a pity, I'll take it.
No. No pity.
Let's go!
A lot of things on P.
Yeah.
Right then, folks, it's time to talk crowdfunding in 2025. And, of course, the three of us, we only know so much, don't we? Me, I know absolutely nothing.
I don't know anything.
So...
Yes.
Well, you two know more than me.
Yeah, well, we'll kind of tackle it, but, it's such an ever-evolving... beast, you think you got your head around it, and then it's changed. Yeah.
So to join us to talk about and figure out and to inform Luddites like me who know absolutely nothing about and who haven't done one, more information about this and there's how you make your comics for it.
How have you not been involved in one? You've kept away. You've done well to keep away from that.
I know.
Even I've been drawn into a few.
I'm on the periphery, but a couple of gentlemen who have been active in making comics are our good friends from Green Archer Comics, Alan and Ben Liska. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having us back.
Thanks.
Ben looks like something's going to happen to him, doesn't he? He looks
What's
like,
happening?
Yeah.
He looked over
He's
his
like
shoulder.
he's tied
What's
up
happening?
in the basement.
Yeah.
Well, Alan pays me to just follow his lead, so
Go around the buck. You know what I mean? It's fine.
Well, everyone's got to make a
literally.
You're like the consigliere from The Godfather, Ben. That's how I see it. Yeah.
So, in regards to crowdfunding, I was part of one that finished last year.
You're always in the game, Dan. You're always there somewhere. Why is there a weird glint in his eye? Did you notice that, Tony? He's he even looks like a bit of a Bela Lugosi the way he had his hand up to the screen.
I was like that bad guy in Round the World, Willy Fogg. You know, the one that always had a glint in his eye. Do you remember that? That was a reference.
Yeah.
So you guys are doing one now, and then Tony, you've got one in the pipeline.
Yeah, we're putting out 4 books in March. That's the plan. So it's a bit of a sort of spring catalogue kind of deal. Yeah, but I mean, most of the books are finished. To be fair for us, so we'll be all ready to go.
Doing the campaign.
Yeah.
So obviously, crowdfunding in general. I mean, most of the time we're talking about Kickstarters, but there's the Indiegogos and Zooplas or whatever. There's so many other things going on, and I think Kickstarter, I think, is still the big daddy for all the indie and small press, isn't it? I think seems to be the most sort of user intuitive.
There's a little spread over onto crowdfunder that I actually think has sort of stopped a little bit. A lot of the people we used to see just use Indiegogo rather seem to be spread betting now across both the platforms.
You can do that, can't you? You can do both.
I mean, obviously, Alan and Ben, when you decided to fund your, because it's a brilliant way to fund your comics. What drove you to that particular platform instead of the other ones that are available?
So we had considered Zoop because Zoop is comic focused, but it's a lot smaller platform. And one of the things, especially when we did our first Kickstarter, that we really considered is I don't want to have to make anybody make a new account, right? Because that's a resistance. Yeah. If they have to create an Indiegogo account, they don't have one. If they have to create a Zoop account and they don't have one, then they're less likely to sign up. So I wanted to make it as easy as possible. And Kickstarter is where everybody is. And so Kickstarter was kind of the default. And, we were very successful in our first Kickstarter. It was the only time we've ever gotten a project that we love from Kickstarter. And I wish I knew what we did right there and didn't do right on the other 7 that we've done.
Wow.
But that was sort of our logic behind it. We debated a bunch of different platforms and just in the end decided everybody's on Kickstarter. Let's go to Kickstarter so that we have the most chance of success.
I've never been a part of a project that Kickstarter said we love.
No, we haven't either. We've never got it. We got thrown off Kickstarter once.
Yeah. What are the parameters for that project we love? Because I've backed a few comics that have that sticker very proudly.
I presume it gives a significant boost to people seeing it as well, getting that tag.
Yeah. Well, one, you show up first in the search results. So somebody who's just searching through the comics category, the projects that we love are the ones that are listed first.
Right. Gotcha. Yeah. Which is great, big.
Right, exactly. And especially so, like if you do it in October, according to Kevin Laporte's numbers, there were something like 400 comics Kickstarter campaigns that launched in October. Really, really hard to get noticed if you don't already bring your own audience with you. So, but I don't know. I think it's an editor, somebody in the Kickstarter comics, because they have their own comics division. And I think somebody there just decides, oh, this is a project that we love. And so they slap the label on that. And I don't know kind of what the parameters are.
So I think what you're saying there, Al, is we should honey trap one of the editors at Kickstarter. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, 100%.
Mate, this is the honey trap just here.
Yeah.
I'll go for it for you. I'll do it for you.
Got the brown waterfall, everything.
Yeah, get the brown waterfall going.
I think since it's got a gold waterfall, brown waterfall, we've established sounds like something completely different.
Maybe we should be the chestnut waterfall.
Maybe that'll be the
no.
attraction.
That's still not good. They both sound like you're having some sort of
intestinal
apocalypse going on. It doesn't sound good.
Well, I'll catfish him then. Let's catfish.
Yeah. So we're Americans, and what we're going to do is I'm going to get Ben to file a lawsuit if we're not declared a project that we love.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Unfair business practices.
Yeah.
That's right. We love our project. Our mom said it was cool.
You two are like that movie, The Firm. I've decided that's your company, isn't it?
What's it like though? Like, and I'm going to come at this conversation like from, and I know there's a few of our listeners, some of whom want to probably crowdfund their own books this year and wondering where to go. And it is daunting. I mean, it's daunting when you do anything in comics, going to a convention, putting your stuff out to a publisher, but even choosing where to, the crowdfunding, because crowdfunding isn't an open goal. It's not a green light. We've seen it over the past couple of years. But beyond that, it's the user, the ease of use of these sort of things. Is it something that if you're like, I've got a comic, I want to run my first Kickstarter, you create an account, you sign up, is it easy for a first-time user to get into it? Is it just,
I don't think
or are
it's
you
too
left
bad.
to your own devices, which can be pretty terrifying sometimes?
You're definitely a lot on your own. The signing up part, relatively easy. So you have to provide them banking information. You have to be from one of the countries that they allow to run a Kickstarter. So there's only a handful that are able to run Kickstarters. And you have to have enough of a presence that it will pass, because it does go through a review process, and that review process is taking a little bit longer. Like our first couple that we put on Kickstarter, they were approved almost instantly. Now there's like a 3 or 4 day wait, and I think a lot of that is, I do think there's been a lot more complaints about projects taking a long time. Now there are some people who have mastered this, right? Like, I mean, we see some people that are just experts at it and they pop them out like one right after the other. But, so one of the things you have to keep in mind as you're planning out your Kickstarters, your Kickstarter has to completely end before the next one, before you can launch the next one.
Is that the case always, Alan? I thought that had changed.
That.
I thought if you didn't have any complaints or people chasing you on a current one, you could run 2 at once. Is that not happened? You know better than me, buddy. I don't know.
When we tried to launch our most recent Press Guardian campaign, because we still had late pledges available for the Johnny Dollar campaign, we couldn't. So we had to close that one. So close late pledge. So the campaign had been ended for a month, but I had just left the late pledges open. We now we had to end late pledges, and then they would let it start. Now, what I see some people do, and I haven't been able to convince Ben to do this yet because he doesn't do shady, semi-illegal things. But what I see some people do is they create 2 accounts. So, one will launch and then a second one can launch under the second account. So if Ben would create his account, put our Green Archer logo on it, he could launch it under his account. And then we could have 2 going at any given time.
So we could have one from Ben Liska and one from Len Bisker.
I wonder what Kickstarter would be like on that. Would they be funny, do you reckon?
Well, I mean, you look at the Cat Calemia and Phil Falco, right? They collaborate on everything, but they have 2 separate Kickstarter accounts, and that means they're able to run 2 at all times. And I mean, they regularly break 10 figures on all of their. So they've had massive success doing this. We don't have enough comics to do that, but B, I don't have the energy or the time to be doing that much fulfillment, even if we could come up with that many comics.
I think they did. I mean, on Kickstarter's part, like not being able to have loads of campaigns on the go is a good thing, in as much that I know you think, oh God, I want to put this other comic book out now because I've already done this one. But like, you'd get people starting out multiple campaigns, not fulfill, and then they've got 3 campaigns worth of money. It's a bit like you build up your name to the point where you can kind of like do a rug pull, and it's like, oh, now I built up my name, I can just leave all this money.
The thing is with it as well is, if you're going to put multiple books, do what we're doing. We just like Avery Hill did recently, didn't they? They put their spring catalogue out, which is 4 books, and they just explain you'll get them as they come out. You're paying for like the next 4 releases. I see that more commonly.
Well, I'm seeing more and more publishers use it. Obviously when it started, with the Keanu Reeves book, and even before then, I think there were publishers using it occasionally, weren't they? And everyone was kicking up a big stink about like. Didn't Archie Comics do it? Did Archie do one? I thought
Archie still has one going on.
Yeah.
I can understand the moral sort of thing, saying, well, it's supposed to be about people kickstarting their business and not already. But it's like capitalism. It's like, if they can make their money doing it, they're going to make their money doing it. I don't.
Yeah. The problem comes when it's a reliance. Yeah. So the reliance by Did you want to talk a bit about that, Alan? On the sort of the reliance on
it. So I think, one of the things about the big publishers doing this, it shows me that, oh, good, nobody in this industry knows what they're doing. Like, when you see like Image or Boom or somebody launching a Kickstarter, you're like, oh, good, they're doing the same thing we are. That's fantastic. I do worry that Kickstarter has become the way that people crowdfund their comics, because we have a whole segment of the indie comic industry that's now reliant on one platform, and that has never ended well for anybody. I think about what happened to news organizations that became overly reliant on Facebook, and then Facebook said, oh, pivot to video. So they all went out and got all this stuff to make video, and then Facebook decided, we really don't want to do news. It's depressing depressing the people who are, I want to say customers, but the customers are really the people
Users.
buying the ads. The viewers. Thank you, Ben.
One company relying on another to do all its business is always going to be an undercutting, silly way to do it, isn't it? Really. Yeah, I mean, we're all slightly cynical about big companies going on Kickstarter, because I think it was kind of just for the small press and indie world, wasn't it? Really, from a comics point of view, anyway.
Yeah, understandable.
And it was much more grassroots than that. I am sort of slightly cynical about, like you say, Image or Boom, especially, because Image are kind of just they're a weird sort of just a platform. Boom being, a company with a CEO and a head of HR and stuff like that. I mean, what are you doing?
But like
just
you said,
take
Alan,
pre-orders.
If they kind of they don't seem to have much faith in the game, and just like this is the only way they know how to make it work, which is like a sad indictment of the business.
Yeah.
And as much that you've got a CEO, you've got a head like a physical bricks and mortar headquarters, and you can't.
Yeah.
This is the only way you can get your books into people's hands.
Yeah. Also, to your point, Tony, they do use it as a pre-order system. I mean, we've had like small press and indie creators who have been able to make the comics, and they know what they're doing. You know, they've got even a professional way of doing it, just like the big two and stuff. And instead of seeing a Kickstarter as like, oh, help me make the book, they've made the book, and they're like, help me get it printed so you can have it, you know.
I see what you mean. I think maybe I was saying that they have a pre-order system already built into American comic books, haven't they? You know, with the distributors. Only over here we've only got Diamond. I know you've got a few different people over there, but the other thing I wondered about as well is whether there's been any effect on grants. So I don't know what it's like in the US, but we have a lot of grants for people who want to make comics in order to help communities or spread the word, or, you know, teach people how to make them, or do them for, I don't know, suicide prevention, cancer research, this sort of thing. I wonder whether anyone at the people giving the grants out said, well, no, I think you should just kickstart this. You know, I think you should just crowdfund this.
Okay.
I wonder whether that's happened, and whether there's been an effect on grants from the government in these times of no money.
So they'll take maybe a kickback from the money earned on that Kickstarter.
No, I just kind of think that they say their easy answer to someone coming to them for a grant or a worthy thing is, why don't you just kickstart it?
If you want to put this message out, just crowdfund it yourself.
If you think it's going to sell, then it will, I suppose. Yeah. Like you say, Dan, that's capitalism, isn't it?
And that's also the reputation that Kickstarter's got, isn't it? Because some people will say that, and they've never touched it, they've never used it, they've never had the.
But I guess the whole problem is if you're putting a comic out about like serious issues, the fact that it'd have to be I
don't think Kickstarter does charity either, does it?
Yeah, no,
right? I think
it doesn't.
Yeah,
not that I'm aware of.
If you was just raising awareness, I want to raise awareness for sort of male, whatever. It's like you'd have to make a product which is people are interested in buying, and would that become straight into entertainment? Which
brings us to the content that's changed over the crowdfunders, I think. Because how long has Kickstarter been going? I mean,
it's well over 12 years, I think, isn't it?
I think that's about right.
Because I think the Kirby Play, do you remember when we had Fred Van Lenti on? Wasn't he an early adopter of Kickstarter? And that's a good 10 years or more ago.
April 2009.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, more than that then. Yeah.
Wow. So that's 15 plus years.
Yeah. Until it's become a norm, hasn't it? Rather than a quirk or a unique thing, a Kickstarter is now just a regular thing for small press creators. And there's so much content out there. Before we jump onto the content, I think here's a question. For all those indie and small press creators out there, especially in a world where we're all so distant from each other, communication's online, and we can be global, even if it's just over Zoom or whatever it is, or via email. But when you want to get your work out there, is it easier for people to have a Kickstarter campaign and try and market that than it is to have a book and use different channels to market it? Because Kickstarter, you've got something to market, isn't it? But when you've got a book, we talk infinitum, the difficulty of marketing a book on its own, even when the book's done.
And it's different now.
Is it?
Do you remember when we launched Awesome Comics? We talked about kickstarting it, which is 8 years ago, I suppose, 9 years ago, and we said, well, we've got a base of people who'll buy it anyway. Why don't we just stick it out?
Print it. Yeah.
But I don't think that'd work now.
No.
I think because of the splintering of social media, I don't think it would work.
Well, and I mean, we can give you real examples. So, the two comics that we did not kickstart are New Beginnings, which is our cybersecurity anthology, and that was just something where we wanted people in the cybersecurity community to contribute a story. We turned it into a comic. We paid for all the art and all the other stuff, and then we put it out there. We've barely sold any of those. I don't even display it at a lot of cons now because it's too hard to make the pitch for it. Occasionally we'll get people that are like, oh, that's kind of cool, and they'll buy it off the website. And then the other one was our Green Archer Zero, that we did not kickstart. Yeah, the one Ben has, and we sell a good number of those at cons, but and it's actually our most successful comic on Global Comics. I mean, that's not saying a lot in terms of raw numbers, but it is hard to get the word out there about that comic. We don't sell a lot of it online. We don't sell a lot of it through, when we first put it out, we did our Instagram post, we did our LinkedIn post, and or not our LinkedIn, our Twitter post, and really didn't sell very many of them. We do sell them fairly well at cons, but nowhere near what we do with the Johnny Dollar comics, for a number of different reasons. But I mean,
you could always retroactively go back and run a Kickstarter campaign for those books. No, I mean, if you've got the finished
people
product,
but is there, I mean, that's then asked the question: do you guys see value in that, or would you rather do new stuff rather than reprinting the old?
I always want to do new stuff, but I do think, Ben and I right now are working on 3 more Green Archer stories that we are going to hopefully fund at the end of the year. Dan's going to do another one of them. And I think what we might do is take the first 3 stories that we have and cut them back up and put them in there, because the nice thing about our Green Archer character is he's a little bit like the Phantom in that he lives throughout time with different people assuming the mantle. And then there's some mysticism stuff there that Ben and I haven't quite sorted out yet.
That was sprung on me. I didn't get the memo.
So we can tell stories in different time periods, which is our intention with the thing that we're going to do at the end of the year. But we can cut these back up and put them back in and expand the size of the book that we're going to deliver.
Yeah, we were just talking about that today, me and Falpy, because obviously we're putting out Tony Osmond 2, part of our Kickstarter. So we were checking what our stock was on Tony Osmond 1, because that's obviously got to be a tier.
Yeah.
That people want to buy both the books, because it's a couple of years ago since we had the first.
You can always put those on add-ons, but like with that one, I would definitely do like Tony Osmond 1 and 2.
Yeah,
so, like,
yeah, and we've got Dirty Basement 3, so we're going to need to check.
How do you figure that out though? Just say you've got issues 1 and 2 of your series, right, and you're crowdfunding issue 3, and of course you've got the add-ons that will be like issue 1 and 2. You then have to, like you say, Tony, you've got to look at the stock. How do you, because you don't really want to reprint a whole load of new stock. So do you have to look at it and then kind of think,
you can limit the numbers, can't you?
I think this is only going to be 20 people that do this, so I've got 20 copies.
We're what now, 6 Kickstarters in, I suppose, something like that. So we kind of got a good idea of the amount of backers we'll get.
Yeah,
we kind of know who has a copy and who hasn't. And honestly, it's done on gut. We came to a number today and we said, yeah, that's probably going to be enough. But I mean, we use Mixem as well, and it's quick enough to do.
Yeah,
they've got an online calculator that works it out. I mean,
yeah. I mean, I use Mixem for my last few, and it's just even for me.
But if you've got
it's easy to go on and
just say you've had a booming campaign, and this issue 3 has brought in new readers that you just didn't expect. That's the majority, which is kind of what we want, isn't it? We always want the Kickstarter.
It's the ideal. Yeah. I mean, we are sort of, for a change, actually doing some kind of fucking promotion.
Yeah.
But we can come on to that after.
Yeah.
But the issue I'm asking, does it then become, because you obviously everyone's going to get the issue 3, the nice shiny new issue 3, but you have to get more issues of issue 2. Do you factor in the cost of printing in 1 and 2 just in case, or is that an extra that you're just going to have to take the hit for?
Yeah, it's slightly more complicated than that, because you do have to consider that, but you also have to consider printing enough that you'll have stuff to sell beyond the people who've kickstarted it as well. So we're likely to do 3 or 4 conventions this year, probably one in the States. So we'll have to think about what we're going to have for that. We have to consider. So Eddie does
consider losses.
Yeah. Eddie does. That's true. Eddie does our distribution in the States. So we will send him some to sell as well from out there when we send him the package of stuff. So yeah, it's quite a jigsaw, man. It is. Luckily, Falpy's quite responsible.
I mean, that's what I think from like a new user. Like these sort of things, so many things to think about, isn't it? It's sort of like
saying something about the TBH comics, and then we'll pass over to the Green Arch Boys. When we did the first comic, we say, right, we'll go and mix them. We say we need to print 50 copies, work out how much that costs, and then roughly how much the postage. That would be our initial basis for the Kickstarter. So once it hits that, we know we've got enough for this amount of books, that amount of postage, and anything over that is essentially the money that goes to the creators.
Because the postage isn't going to change because it's by book, isn't it? So
there's some variation, obviously, when you go overseas. As you guys know, going overseas from like US to UK is just so much. It's ridiculous. But yeah, once you factor in, so we kind of know once that money hits that target, the book's going to get printed, and what we do is we print overs, maybe get 10, 15, 20 copies over. So when you go to the next campaign, that book has already been paid for. So when you add that into an add-on, that's just you recouping more and money.
There's always copies that you give out. I mean, we're not hardcore businessmen. There is always copies that I'll give to people and want to send to people who are creators, for example, I tend to send comps to the artists I work with as well. So there's such a algorithm type thing going on, but mostly I do it through common sense. I suppose
it used to be on Mix'em. You could like bang in like I'll stick another 5 copies in, and they're like, oh, that's an extra 50p. So fuck it.
I've never had Mix'em come in at exactly the right number.
No, it's usually always over.
Yeah,
it's the way they do the print runs, because you have to check like a certain amount of books are good, and it's like, right, okay, then they run them out, and you may get loads more. I mean, when I've done Vanguard and I've had the collection, if I'm selling that for like 15 quid a book and they stick in 4 extra books, that's all right. Fine. Yeah.
That's money for the strippers in 2 weeks' time, isn't it? So
but how many more are you? Because there's the campaign, and if you look at the numbers, there's exactly what you'll have for that print, for the print run. But how many more books than what you're?
What do you think, Al?
How many more books do you want to get?
You've got to factor in 2 things. You have to factor in how many conventions you're going to do and how many you think you're going to sell at the convention. Mm-hmm. Also, how generous your wife is with how much, or husband is with how much space you're allowed to take up in the house. I mean, generally we do about 100 more than what we do, and then we try and sell them at cons and of course through the website and so on. But there's a limit to the we had to go and rent a storage unit because with Thanksgiving and Christmas and everything, somebody was very, very unhappy with how much space was being taken up in the living room with comic stuff. I'm not going to say who was unhappy.
It was me.
Right. Len Biska was back on.
Right. Yeah, there's a complaint on the Green Archer website from I guess you could always ship them up to me too, and I could store them. I've got some space.
There you go. We have a text chain that includes Ben, myself, my wife, my son Bruce, and our mom, who wants to be involved whether we want her to be or not. And we call it the Comic Council, and so all of these little things kind of come out as we kind of do that. But one thing I want to caution especially for creators in the US that are thinking about and planning how much they're going to need and what the costs are going to be, if the tariffs they're talking about are enacted and you're planning on getting your comics printed up in China, that is going to significantly impact what your final costs are going to be. So you may have a quote now that is going to the printer, but when your Kickstarter ends and you actually submit that for it, you may find that it's 30 or 40% higher. Now, we're small enough that we use a printer down in Florida. They are fantastic. We love them, but we're not printing up more than a couple hundred books at a time, so we don't need to necessarily go to China to do
those numbers.
I need to contact my printer then, talibanprint.co.uk.
But I think that's a good rule of thumb, is just sort of like we say, the Kickstarter's not, and we don't want to be doomsayers, the Kickstarter's obviously not going to be a guaranteed success, but also there's no point printing a 5,000 copy run of this book, because you'll have
4,500.
Yeah.
We've still got copies of Awesome Comics, haven't we? For 8 years ago, we've still got some copies of them.
You've got to be careful, because if you're sinking
well, bring them for the 500.
If you're sinking money into the stock, and that's a consideration in your life, like you're kind of not living hand to mouth, but like all money's going to be tied up in that stock, and if that's sitting there and you cannot sell it, you're taking a fucking loss on that stock. So you got to be very careful on like how you kind of balance it. Like I've got to the point where it's like, do I want to order in a load more Vanguard books because I might not be able to sell them? I might be stuck with them on my hands. But then you don't want to not have any to when people want to read it. It's
you got to appreciate that all three of us live in fear of our wives as well. So that's a massive issue.
Cast long shadows.
I think all 5 of us do.
Confirmed.
Yeah.
One of the things, like, obviously, it's such a changing landscape is with the promoting your Kickstarter. It used to be that you just jump on Twitter, for instance, say, I've got this book Kickstarting, stick in a couple of hashtags, and you're off to the races.
we used to complain all the time, I can't go on Twitter without seeing Kickstarters everywhere. But now we're not hearing that so much because not so many people are using the social media anymore. You know,
or just the algo just doesn't. You don't get to see
algo.
The algo, isn't that a Ben Affleck movie? Is it?
Yeah.
You
guys got to get connected in.
You're so cool.
You are one of them with the kids. The thing we have. I mean, God bless you. I love your country very much, guys. But we have a high cringe factor here. So I put that cartoon on earlier on Twitter of people gathered around a grave, praying, and someone from off camera says, by the way, I've got a Kickstarter going. It's like. It's very like that over here. The hard sell falls on deaf ears in the UK. I think
it's not great.
It's not very respected. I would say probably people are more into it where you are.
But from
my experience,
if I can ask a question about that, Tony, like, is that also because it's individuals? Would it be less cringeworthy if it's an Avery Hill boom? If it's a publisher doing it? Because they have, let's face it, they've got marketing departments, or something like that, and they're.
I think it depends on how it's done.
Would we think, oh God, not them again, or is it because it's individuals?
You might be right, man. Because all the ones I'm trying to think of have come from people who won't stop bothering me when I'm at conventions to tell me about their Kickstarter. It's I've literally been followed around by a certain lady, which wasn't a good thing at the time, to be told about her new book.
I mean, generally the faux pas is like DMing. I mean, people have gone on about this for ages, DMing people and saying, "Can you do this for me?" Or they tag you in saying, "Could you do this, like promote my Kickstarter and stuff?"
The one that always gets me is they retweet something or something like that, and I'll say, "Oh, thanks for the retweet. No problem. We really love the show. Any chance of having us on to talk about your Kickstarter?" Oh, you caught me.
I mean,
you caught me there.
I've run out of toilet roll. Here's some. By the way, here's a link for my Kickstarter.
Yes, we do every week. We ask people if they want to mention like what they got on sale or Kickstarter or whatever, and we'll mention it in the shout outs.
Always. Always. Yeah. It's a funny one. We talk a lot about the people we come across on this show, and you guys, fortunately, you're in the good side. But some people just live to sell. They don't have that in them to have a conversation first with you.
I feel like kind of for a lot of it, it's like you want people to read the comics first, and then the salesman bit comes after. I guess you guys, the creators, you want people to read your stories, and
also I think with their small press or indie creators, because we know it's like you're shouting to the void, and if someone reacts to it and then says, "Yeah, I'll talk about it. I'll say this." We love it when those creators are like, "Thank you so much," and then interact a bit more. They keep going and sort of like, and it builds up a relationship. Because where some people are like, "Oh, I really need your help." Yeah, we'll chat about it, and then radio silence, absolute radio silence, and you kind of feel this. You feel used. You feel like a piece of meat.
Here's one of my favourite ever ones: is someone put on Twitter who I vaguely know, never met in person, that they'd lost a family member. So I just messaged them and said, "I hope you're okay." And they said, "Yeah, do you know what would cheer me up if I could come on your podcast and talk about the Kickstarter?" And I don't know how I should react to that. I'm socially inept.
Oh man,
I don't know how I should fucking react to that. So I blocked them. No, that's a joke. That's a joke. That's a joke.
Yeah, that's a rough one.
Yeah. That's a fair way to do it. Is just you know what, block them.
Alan, you just mentioned you've hired a HR. Was it that
PR?
HR.
We probably need HR.
We need a HR. Please,
Alan has been sent to HR. Yes.
HR on this show wouldn't go too well. But essentially, a PR specialist in comics to promote your company's books going forward. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so we're bad at marketing. Like Dan and Ben, with the new Kickstarter we have, you all have promoted it way more than I have. I keep trying, but I feel like
you're killing it though. Still, Al, it's going well though.
I mean, we've hit our number. I'm happy. I want to do a little bit higher, but for the most part, I'm happy with where we are. And a lot of that is thanks to Dan discounting his artwork for us, so that we.
No, that's no worries, man. I did all right out of that. Yeah.
But so with the fragmented social media, we're trying to figure out what works, and I don't know if PR is the answer. Because a lot of people say you all are different. Because you have such a big and loyal audience that you've built up over 10 years. But a lot of people will say, well, don't bother going on podcasts. Nobody clicks on anything off a podcast. Or, it doesn't matter if you're in Bleeding Cool or any of the, comic news sites. And I know nobody saw me do air quotes when I did that. Say that I did air quotes. Because nobody reads those sites, etc. But I also know social media doesn't quite work for us. We've been through this is our 8th campaign, and we've been somewhere between 50 and 80 backers for every campaign, which is enough for us. We're because our philosophy has always been, if we can cover about half the cost of making the comic through the Kickstarter, then the other half will make up at cons. But how do you then grow beyond that 50 to 80 number? And that's hard. I have 16,000 people that follow me on Twitter. That means nothing. I have 7,000 that follow me on Blue Sky, which is supposed to be more interactive. That still means nothing. We have a whopping 200 followers on Instagram now, thanks to the nice lady that does our Instagram for us, who's been killing it. And that also means nothing. Now, if I tweet about something cybersecurity related, I get a lot of interaction with that. But the people who are following me for cybersecurity stuff don't necessarily care about my comics. And they're all jerks for that. So making that transition from A to B is hard, but even within our own small little fan base, so we have a mailing list now that we've grown to about 200 people. Even with our own small fan base, going from yours truly, Johnny Dollar, got a lot of signups to the mailing list from that, and then we go to the Press Guardian, and they write back and go, well, when are you going to do more Johnny Dollar? Like, well, we want to do a second comic. But we like Johnny Dollar. And I'm like, okay. I understand. We'll get to more Johnny Dollar eventually. So the trying to change things, I think we talk about a more divided social media, but I think even more divided in that they follow you for a specific thing. And if you vary from that thing, they're not as interested in that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Fair. Have you found any platforms that have, for a short time at least, been useful? I mean, is it, for example, we've had some success this week with Substack. We seem to be getting an awful lot of hits beyond the number of subscribers, which I guess will be short-lived. It'll move on to the next hot thing in a year or so. But is there anywhere that you've gone to, you thought, oh, that was nice because it's a new thing? I know, for example, Alan, you do those little YouTube videos I like watching where you talk about comics of the week and stuff. Is there anything that's worked for you like that?
So YouTube we get a lot of engagement on when we do things that they like we unearth an old Spectre comic, or I did a thing about Holy Hannah appearing in Golden Age comics, and like everybody's like, oh, that's fascinating, but not Kickstarters. I've heard really good things about Kickstarter, and you all know that we met with a consultant to talk about what we need to do to better improve our visibility, and Kickstarter and Substack and Blue Sky were the two things that he recommended. A lot of his recommendations I don't think were great, but those two things were where they kind of emphasized, and where I think a lot of people are seeing that, because it does get you in your mailbox, and that mailbox is still the thing that the people who are our age and older, like my son, never checks his email. He's in his 20s. He doesn't check his email unless I tell him, hey, I sent you an email. But I think for most people that inbox is the one thing that they still check on a fairly regular basis. So I do think, at least in the short term, Substack is where it is. What I don't know is, and again, going back to that username and password thing, we already have a mailing list. Is moving that mailing list over to Substack, even if that means we could potentially get more people, are we going to lose the fan base that we have because they don't want to create a Substack account and kind of all the other stuff?
Yeah, that's true. I'm in a bit of a pickle at the moment because obviously I've been putting out a weekly column about best comics I read and stuff on the website, but I'm finding I'm getting a really good level of engagement almost straight away on Substack, so I'm putting it on both. Now that's a massive pain in my arse when I'm on the road, sort of thing. But yeah, you're right. It is a pickle, isn't it?
Weirdly, have to do both. Yeah.
One area where I did get some engagement from, which surprised me, was LinkedIn.
Okay.
And I think it was because I framed it as, hey, we're starting a new company and we're doing this and we're taking a chance and so on. And then all of the kind of people that are on LinkedIn to talk about their business stuff are like, well, we got to support a small business like this. And so they did, but that was only good for 1 or 2 campaigns, and then that wasn't as good anymore.
Yeah, I think that might be the thing. I think it kind of is successful for a bit, and then you have to move on.
Yeah.
Getting back to your PR person, if you don't mind me asking, Alan, are they specialists in comics, or are they just specialists in, for example, social media PR or?
No, they're very specifically specialists in comics. So it's what is Melissa's company's name? Don't Hire PR, I think, is what the company name is. Give me 1 second and I'll find out for sure.
I will say, I don't think you need to make a Substack account to sign up for a newsletter from Substack, because I don't have a Substack account, very specifically because I'm like, I don't want to make a new account. But there are a couple of small presses I follow over there, not comics, but short story anthologies, and I get their stuff in my Google Mail.
Oh, interesting to know. Good to know.
Also, I can get insulted by Johnny Cannon over Substack.
Yeah, he didn't insult you about your mum being Robocop today.
Yeah, but you don't need to be on Substack for that, Dan.
Yeah, I'll give him your phone number if you want. It's easy. The other thing, Alan, as well, I've experienced this in the past is I've been approached by people who claim to be experts in comics promotion, especially when I was working at Nobrow, and I think there's a lot of grifters out there. Yeah. So I think you need to be really careful who you hire.
Don't Hide PR is the name of the company. I shared it in the chat. Very different than Don't Hire PR. That R&D difference is huge.
It's a bit like the R in Gary Oldman, isn't it? It's a bit like that.
Well, and I think I've complained about this on the Substack before, or on the Slack before, that when you post your Kickstarter, you are going to get dozens of people who email you, and they will hunt down. Like, if they don't email you directly through Kickstarter, they will find your email address, they will find your Instagram, and they will reach out and tell you how much they love your Kickstarter campaign and how amazing it is, and they can help you get out to hundreds of more people, and they are all lying to you.
Yeah. I think that's like one thing you've ever run Kickstarter, you'll get people DMing you saying, I can make this campaign go nuts, and you'll earn more money than you can possibly imagine. And
looking at the Don't Hide website is quite an eye opener. Looking at their portfolio, and they've done some great stuff. So
we get pitches for stories through our Kickstarter as well. You wouldn't believe it. People who don't even back the Kickstarter send us like detailed pitches and thumbnails of the comic they want us to print for them. Really,
I think if you kind of like say you're a publisher, maybe like people. I
think that was the problem. Yeah,
they give it a chance. Then, hold on, they might be a publisher.
Well, we get that when people realize that Green Archer Comics is a publisher. I get emails all the time and hits up on LinkedIn all the time from people that are like, "Here's my art portfolio. Can I do drawings for you?" And I appreciate that, but we are so small that that we're not in the position.
Dan will cut them as well. He carries a knife, so yeah, I know what you mean, man. The other thing I was thinking about for you guys, it occurred to me today when I was looking through some of your stuff again, is because you've got that kind of golden age thing going on. Have you ever considered adverts in actual magazines like Tomorrow's and stuff like that? That's got to be up your street, isn't it?
Yeah. So, again, going back to the consultant we met with, that was his actual suggestion that we pivot away from cybersecurity and talk more about our pulp and golden age, because that really is what our specialties become. I mean, basically taking public domain characters and bringing them into the modern age. And I think there's some value to that. But the other thing, of course, he suggested was we get rid of the name Green Archer because it's too close to Green Arrow, and I'm not doing that because I love that book and I love that movie and I like the name. But the reason for the cybersecurity focus is that's what I'm known for, right? That's why I have however many thousands of followers on Twitter that I have, is because of that. But yes, in fact, one of the things that we're going to do this year is we're going to go to Pulp Fest in Pittsburgh, which is dealing with the pulp magazines and pulp books and so on. And there aren't a lot of comics there, but I'm hoping that that'll give us a chance to stand out when we've made comics of these pulp characters.
That's a good shout. I mean, because looking at a business thing, like the price point of a comic is going to be lower potentially than some of the other items that are being sold there, and like something different. So I think that's a good shout. I mean, we've always said that on here. Like, if you're doing a horror comic, maybe instead of going to a Comic Con, go to a horror con or a sci-fi con.
And if you've got something that's very specific, like a comic book about coffee, well, which there are many, but go to a get it in coffee shops and stuff like that.
Erotica, go to Erotica with your comics.
I mean, Tony's been to that Satanists.
Yeah, we had big success of that, and do you know why? It's because everyone was so nice.
Yeah,
everyone's like, "Oh, the comic guys are here," and they come over and have a chat. Some dude with horns implanted in his head and stuff like that. And
I wonder if you did a Sox comic, you could go to one of those big things they used to do in Earl's Court. Do they still do those?
Erotica. Yeah, I went to one of them once. It was for work, mind you, but
once.
Oh yeah, of course it was.
Yeah. The funny enough, the day after the 500th, in a hotel that's almost literally across the road is a horror convention. So we thought we might pop in there and have a look at that as well before heading home. Yeah, good stuff. Carolyn Monroe's at it. I've told you that, haven't I?
Only we knew someone who had done a horror comic recently.
If only. Yeah.
I may try and give a copy to Caroline Monroe.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There's a story there.
So when is 500 again?
You say it, Tony, and then I'll repeat.
I'm not touching on it ever again. I feel like I pissed on your strawberries on that one.
No.
Waiting for the shout outs, for God's sake. Before we activate Dan again.
Take a sip of coffee and
But beyond, I know you were just saying there, Alan, about these sort of people who out the blue will email you. You get it as soon as you set a website up, don't you? For example, you go, "Oh, have you seen the analytics on your website?" If you look at my spam, it's just like never-ending people saying that. However, there are also people who claim to be in the industry who claim that they'll do it for you. I know those grifters are out there as well. There's a lot of that going on. I've literally had someone who said I successfully used to work in a comic shop. I know the business. I'm thinking this dude couldn't run a bath.
Yeah, it's different from working in a comic shop to getting a book published and getting it.
Yeah, I mean, because I used to work at a comic company, and because I'm on here, people have approached me and asked me to do it. And I said, I don't know what I'm doing. I've got a Scooby Doo.
It's a massively different skill set.
It really is.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's one of the things that Ben and I, and maybe Ben, you disagree. Ben and I have kind of discovered as we've been doing this for a year and almost a year and 4 months now, is it doesn't feel like anybody really knows what they're doing, like the whole picture. But you as an indie creator have to do everything. Like, you have to do it all, but nobody actually knows what they're doing. I mean, I'd argue DC and Marvel don't know what they're doing because nobody buys their I mean, yes, people buy their comics. They certainly buy more of their comics than they buy of ours. But we're hearing constant stories, and we're seeing all these indie comic book shops shut down. So are they buying as many of their comics as they used to?
Yeah,
and it's crazy in those circumstances.
It's a clown show.
You have, like, for instance, if you've got creators who don't know what they're doing, it's not a case of, like with the indies and small press, well, they didn't know what they were doing for the whole thing. With the bigger publishers, you've got the creators who don't know what they're doing, who hand it off to the marketing people who don't know what they're doing,
and
to
the publishers,
the editors. So there's a long list of lines where it could at some point someone go, hang on, this is not working. But when you're a small press, or you sometimes a one-man band or a one-person band or whatever, it's all on you, isn't it? Which obviously is extra pressure because, as we all know, even just proofing a book, you can look at it and you can look at it and you can look at it.
Today.
And until someone else looks at it,
times.
And someone else goes, well, he spelt the wrong. What? And you just don't see it. So when it comes to like running Kickstarts or running a crowdfunder campaign, and you are a solo creator, how can you get through that without some sort of support of like people like checking things over? Do you run things past other people to
you got
say,
the two of you, I guess, start with them?
Yeah.
We rely on an editor. We did. He just accepted a position as a deacon in his church, so he won't be able to be our editor.
Oh, you said,
anymore.
yeah.
But now Simon said that he's going to
first,
check out some of our stuff. So, I'm a firm believer in having an editor go over that. Not only because Ben and I think too much alike. And Ben is a fantastic editor and catches a whole lot of stuff, and really is good with dialogue, which I love. But we absolutely have an editor that goes over everything, and we obsessively go over it after the editor's finished to make sure. But occasionally things slip through, especially like in a lot of our books where we have Russian and German and other things that we don't actually do the translations. And you just want to make sure that it's the exact right one.
Yeah.
The thing is as well is the role of the editor is something of a nebulous term these days. It's sort of, I don't really know. I mean, how do you guys see the editor? Do you see them as being part of the creative process? Because some people do successfully work like that. Or do you see them as someone who will get the script and like professionally edit it from a point of view what will sell best or what will be most print friendly or something like that? How do you see the editor role?
So the editor, our editors that we've used, first of all, double check the language. Like that's first priority. Make sure we didn't do an R instead of an R or whatever. But also check out the story flow. Make sure that things are consistent with the characters. We've had a couple of those kind of things when we with the Press Guardian and Clock crossover where it's like, especially when we're trying to disambiguate between two characters that are close to each other so that they don't all sound the same. Make sure that there are distinct voices there and that they don't kind of blend in. The editor is never going to be able to tell us whether or not the comic's going to be successful because we don't know if the comic's going to be successful. I wish I had an editor that's going to say, "Oh yeah, this will definitely sell."
But would you accept it from an editor who came to you and he says, "I don't think the ending works, guys"? Would that something you would take on board? Would that something you'd see their role as?
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Right.
So we're working on a separate clock, which we've been working on for a while. And one of the things that the editor came back to us when he went through the script, he's like, I don't care about this character. I don't care what happens to it. I'm like, all right, that is good feedback. Let's go ahead and go back to the drawing board and kind of redo that. And it can't be just, well, I don't care about this character. I'm like, well, okay, you're a jerk. Who cares what you think? It's, why don't you care about the character? Where did we go wrong and do the misstep? And then that becomes that feedback. Absolutely. Like and I think part of this comes from my day job of being an analyst where I'm used to being told I'm wrong. And, here's kind of the evidence.
Or being married.
Right. Or being married. Or dating. Before I was married, I just want to be very clear on that.
Very clear.
You have to be willing to accept that maybe your story sucks, right? Like, that maybe the thing that you love, like Ben and I are working on something with Keiron right now on just this weird idea we had about what if you took a bunch of cryptids and turned them into a hacker force and, kind of going back and forth with him as you know, we've done the script, we've done the editing, but then also going back and forth with him as he's doing the drawing. And Dan did this really well of, you know, this doesn't really work or this does work. And so it's not just the editor, but also the artist telling you that, hey, visually, this is stupid. I mean, not that they use those words, but visually, this doesn't make sense. What if I did this? Yes, I think that's fantastic.
And I think not only the artist for that, I think it's worth considering the letterer's opinion. Yep. I had a Zoom call a couple of nights ago with our letterer. Big shout out to Ken Reynolds with me and Cliff, who've spent literally a couple of years on this comic, and we've had to say to him, "What do you think about the spacing for this? What do you think? Do you think, you know?" And the lettering being part of it, being part of the impetus, part of the emphasis, everything like that in relation to it. So I think it's very much important to consider that. I think one of the things here we're missing, guys, is if you allow me to be slightly a contrarian, is we're talking about the business of small press, aren't we, really? But how do you feel about it? The main thing for me, and I know I speak for Vince and Dan in this, the main thing for me is what's on the page. That's got to come first. Is that the fun bit for you, and then the Kickstarter's like, oh God, oh my God, what
certainly
are we doing?
Like that for me.
It's like that. Yeah. Do you find that, guys?
Oh yeah, I mean, Ben, what do you think? I mean.
Oh, well, Alan does all the Kickstarter stuff. I literally just do the editing and the back and forth,
do the fun stuff,
do the retweets and things like that. So he handles all of the back end stuff, and I get to see the fun part, right? I get to go in and tell Alan, "You're an idiot. This doesn't work," or "This is brilliant. Good job. Have a cookie," stuff like that. So I can only imagine, but. Real quick, if you don't mind me going back to the editor.
Please, man, please.
So I have been rejected from several short story venues. So I'm not an expert, but there are different levels of editing as well. If you go from a purely pro standpoint, I know we're talking about comics, so I'll keep this brief. So like you have like developmental editors who will tell you, does this hold together? Like, can this be published? And then you have like structural edits where they go through and they look for big problems like that. And then you have like proofreading and copy edits where they go and they find typos. And those all cost varying amounts of money. So like having an artist on board and then having someone to read back and forth and then another editor, it is adding those layers in just with different people. When I did, Dan had a lot of great input on all of the work we've done with him. My solo short in the Green Archer Zero, my artist friend who did that, he was very helpful in that. He's done comics before and I had no idea what I was doing. So like, maybe I'll just listen to the guy who knows what he's doing.
I
think
lean on someone like that.
Yeah, the other side of that is there's a lot of people out there who don't know what they're doing, but claim they do. That's one of the big problems, you know. You got to listen to the right people as well, I think, sometimes.
Right, and it's tricky to know where you're, like, where is this, okay, that's a good idea, versus, like, no, you're wrong about this. And it's, it's very hard to get into that, phase where you know what to listen to and what not to. It comes down to, like, kind of trusting the people you send your books to and things like that.
Like, gone.
I always remember the example. There's a movie called Mr. Jones. I can't remember the name of the director, but quite a well-known sort of out there director. And the studio is about someone with manic depression. And they came to the director and they said, "Look, we quite like the manic bits. Can you get all the depressive bits out of it?"
Yeah.
It's like there's a lot of people with a lot of opinions out there, and a lot of them are wrong, I think.
Right. And people have different tastes, and different genres have different conventions that you violate at your own peril. Yeah. So like, you may not want to have a lot of gore in a comic that you're trying to market to a different audience or something like that. So, it's all it's all big picture stuff.
I say you got to trust the editor, but then if they kind of like shape it into something you don't want it to be.
Exactly. Yeah.
You have to have a vision for your comic. And I think, and that gets back to the question you asked, Tony, is we have a vision for what we want to do with our comics. Like we have this idea that we want to...
A creative vision, if you see what I'm saying now. Yeah.
Yeah, right. A creative vision. And so our editors, if they tell us, we'll know, again, talking to the consultant, and he's like, "Well, you keep using the word cyber, like cyber's that's not used anymore." I'm like, "No, it is. It's cyber insurance is literally what it's called." So you should always take what the editor says under advisement, keep your mind open, but also know when hey, they're off base here, and be able to justify why. But then, and I have Ben as the sounding board, and Ben has me as the sounding board. If the editor throws something out that either one of us says, well, I don't think that's right, we can ask the other and make sure it sticks with the vision. And that's what you have to have when you're going into Kickstarter. Like, I think that's one of the things that people love is you have a vision of what you want to do and what you want to deliver. And that's, for me, that's what I want to back. Now, there are some people that just want boobs, and and right. And if we made boob comics, I'm sure those would do really well, but that just doesn't fit with what we
that's fair.
That we want to deliver.
Yeah,
you've got to be prepared to listen to each other, haven't you? I think it's a massive thing.
And also know what your market is. Know what you're aiming for. Do you know what I mean? Like, and you have to be honest with yourself that your comic is not for everyone. Even if it's all ages, it's not for everyone. So
if you're trying to make it for everyone, you're making it for no one.
Yeah,
exactly. It's that old phrase.
Yeah.
You got to, like I said, you're going for this crowd. You know what they like. Please that crowd.
Yeah. If you try to please everyone, you'll please no one. Well, you won't please yourself at the end of the day.
Right. Please myself most days.
So all right. Yeah, I know. So is the end goal when crowdfunding? I mean, there's been so much gold and so many things to hopefully for Chris to think about during this conversation. But is the end goal to, in the future, not use a crowdfunder? They're wonderful tools, but is the whole point of this...
Yeah, do you outgrow them, I suppose, is what you mean there.
Is the whole point of this, one day, I will not need this? Or is it essentially a marketing tool / shop? There's a lot
in play there in that question, I think. Yeah.
I know, that's what I do.
Guys?
Go ahead, Ben. You look like you had a comment.
Well, okay, and again, I apologize. I'm relatively new to making comics, so all of my experience is looking at other things. So, there's a game company that I follow. You can see my RPG collection behind me for people who get the secret video feed that costs you $1,000 a month on Patreon.
A day. It's per day. Yeah.
But he's an American, so it's not a firearm. He means role-playing game. Just so we're clear.
Oh yeah. Oh my God. I had that happen when I was being a background interview for one of my friends. And it's like, what's that? I'm like, okay, hold on. Anyway, there's a company called Pinnacle Entertainment Group. They make a role-playing game called Savage Worlds, and they do Kickstarter still, even though they are an established company. And they use it as a pre-order system. They use it to offset costs, I'm sure. And they continue to do it. And they even built their own in-house crowdfunding thing that goes through their website so that they don't have to use Kickstarter if they don't want to. So, and I know I not to ruffle any comic feathers, but I believe Eric July and the Rippaverse Comics started their own crowdfunding system called Ripasend because he was having problems with PayPal when he did his initial comic runs. So I don't know that it's going to go away. I think that a big enough company will simply create their own crowdfunding system.
Yeah.
I think it also depends on the movements made and the growth or lack of growth in the comics world generally. I think that's something where we'd all like to start on Kickstarter, move on to Diamond, sell our comics through comic shops through Diamond would seem like a natural progression.
Well, some people do like they fund their books, and then 6 months later they're with a publisher, or they're with a publisher. Yeah. The book that you have is now published through someone else, isn't it?
I feel a little bit cheated sometimes around that, don't you? But I think it's almost like, for example, with us with Tribute Presses, we put it on Kickstarter or wherever it's going to be, and then we move to Kickstarter. We think, oh, this is now successful. We've now got our audience. We can now apply to Diamond, get in the Diamond catalogue and putting out that way. I think because of the unfortunately the shaky comics industry at the moment, it's not doable. I think in a healthier comics industry, I think that would be a lovely path for us to take generally. I think. Yeah.
Can I tell a marketing story? This unrelated to comics, but this is the kind of marketing gaffes. There's a game coming out from Ubisoft called Assassin's Creed Shadows. Have you heard about this game? And they've made loads of cultural gaffes because it's set in Japan.
Yep.
They've done stuff like they've used a bit of architecture that they've used in the game for kind of like a sort of background for the characters, and that was left after the nuclear bombs were dropped, and this one part of the Shinto shrine was that, and they've just dropped it in a game because it's like, oh, that come up on a Google search. So they put their game back. They've had to delay their game again, and it's coming out. The new date is coming out on the 20th of March. 2025, and that is 20 years to the day of the Japan underground ricin attack. So it's just there's someone's job, full-time job, to look at these marketing windows and when they're going to do stuff, and they decided on that date, and that's like a multi-million-dollar multinational company.
The most recent example I would say of that is the comic, and it was actually a really good comic, unusually for a Trump comic, was the comic that we got sent to review 2 days before Trump got shot.
Yeah,
I mean there are world events or things that happen in the world that you cannot foresee, and you have to change things.
Well,
but if you are culturally using, if you're making a game based around a certain culture, get it fucking right.
I had to do it with Viper, didn't I? I've talked about it often on the show, but I had. The second issue of Viper was going to be Soviet strike because it's against the Russians, and then like a couple of weeks before I launched it, they invaded Ukraine. So I had to put it on the back burner and change the name, and it's
But there are people out there who would take advantage of that. I mean, famously, we've seen a book about a certain area of the world that was using the war as a selling point in their YouTube videos.
Yeah, if you can sleep at night when you do stuff like that, man, that's on you. I can't.
Well, we're sure that lots of the people listening to this are not going to make such shameful faux pas. And if you choose to do a Kickstarter, let us know about it. We'll put it in the shout outs.
Yay!
Yeah, but before we let you go,
you've got to be special friends of ours to come on the show.
Should we give a shout out to that book now? Before we
let's do that.
Before we let you go, you've got to talk about what you got going on. So,
do you guys want to do the pitch on the Press Guardian clock?
Ben, you go ahead and start.
Oh, no. This is you.
All right. So I love old school 50s, like 40s and 50s comics. And, some of those characters that have gone in the public domain are actually pretty cool. And so we already had our Press Guardian and we're working on our new clock. But I really wanted to take the original Press Guardian and clock and turn them into a comic, because the one thing that they never got to do was punch Nazis in their original runs. They would punch like the Monronia Bund, which was the stand-in for the German-American Bund, and they would punch a guy's named Fritz and Karl and so on, but they were not allowed until January of 1941, when Captain America punched Hitler. Most comics weren't allowed to punch Hitler or punch Nazis. And so because they had already started to fade before 1941, they didn't get that chance. So we wanted to bring them back and give them a chance to punch Nazis. And then we had Operation Pastorius, which is a real sabotage operation that the Nazis launched against the U.S. that failed miserably. And in great comic tradition, we're like, well, what if it didn't? And so we start with that, and we send some Nazis running loose doing sabotage campaigns, and the clock and the Press Guardian wind up in the same town trying to stop the Nazis.
There's a character, really, the pug character, I really took a warm shine to him, because the clock's got like a kind of like mate he hangs around with, who's like ex-military, who's a bit of a sort of down and dirty, would you say? He kind of knows like the kind of the shady parts of town and perhaps the looser women, and he's a bit of a bruiser, and it's a good counterpoint to the clock, who's kind of a bit more of a sophisticated playboy kind of guy.
Right. So in the original comic, the clock was a playboy sportsman, is how he was described. A sort of a Bruce Wayne analogy, and so the pug, who looks exactly like the clock for some reason, mostly because I think they couldn't draw too many faces at the time, is the sort of the ruffian version of him. And so it's kind of a cool thing, and hopefully we get to do more with these characters, because I really want to explore how that relationship works. In the last 6 issues of the clock, though, the pug goes away, and instead he's got a 13-year-old girl that he's fighting crime with, and I'm like, that feels really appropriate.
That's really weird.
That part of the clock. But I mean, I guess it's in line with the Batman tradition, so why not?
I guess,
There's a sequence, I won't spoil it, but like they're outside a bar waiting for one of the Nazis to come out, and Pug starts telling some anecdotes about his time in the war, and if attractive women come up start talking to you, there's a reason for it. It's great.
Was it like my milkshake story a minute ago?
A little bit.
Not quite that bad, no.
That's not for listeners.
No.
Maybe at the 500th.
And I know this is going to get taken out of context, and Ben is going to get canceled because this is Ben who is saying it, not me. But we actually really love our Nazis, so we're going to use them in a couple of other comics as well.
They're great foils, really great bad guys in it. Man, I had a blast doing this book. You're really
time for Hitler.
You need good bad guys, right? Don't let your good guys win because the bad guys are dumb. Let your good guys win because they're better.
And the bad guys have to be bad guys.
Yeah.
Right. Enough of let's understand them.
Here we go.
There's an author I had on friends on Twitter for years, and he does prose books, and he just got a 2-star review on Amazon because one of the lady who read it said the bad guys were like really horrible in this book. And it's like, that's the point. That's the point.
Yeah, I know.
I
hate that dynamic at the moment of people going on about, you've written a terrible character there.
Yeah.
I'm not that person.
Yeah. I also see a lot of bad guys that are really good bad guys and are really horrible. But now the thing for me is when I see a good bad guy, I think they're horrible. I hate them. They better get a comeuppance that justifies.
It makes it all the sweeter when they get their comeuppance.
Yeah, I don't want to see him just like fall out of a window and just disappear. No. Something.
Yeah. It's like the man who had sex with the unicorn in my comic, and we chop his knob off.
Well,
there you go.
Guess what he deserves.
Yeah, exactly what should happen.
So how long? Let's get back on the track. So when's your campaign ending, guys?
It is ending at 500. So we're ending at 2:00 on 2:00 British time on the 20th. So you all will either be able to celebrate with me or cry. Or sorry, on the 25th. Sorry.
Yeah. I was worried there. I was worried for a second.
On the 25th. So y'all either be able to celebrate with me. Ben, unfortunately, cannot make the trip to London.
Lightweight.
Or you'll be able to celebrate with me.
Will you bring Len Bisker along? Will Len be there? Or
Len will be there.
He has a vacation plan. So.
and Dan, do they know about the surprise, or is that our secret?
We're keeping that secret for now.
All right. We have a little surprise we're not going to share with anybody yet, but assuming we're successful, we'll have a surprise for the people at 500.
Oh,
brilliant.
Amazing.
Looking forward to seeing you, man. It'll be good.
Yeah, it'd be great.
Yeah.
Well,
okay, so back to it now.
We already funded, so you're going to have to put up.
A lot of people can cancel between now and then, especially after we just said we love Nazis on.
That's true.
Take that. That's going in the advert for the show.
Yeah.
But we're almost to getting free stickers, so I'm very excited for that.
Hit $1,000 when we get the free stickers for all backers. So let's get those numbers up there.
Yeah,
nice.
Absolutely.
Nice. So go follow their Kickstarter and heed their words about your own Kickstarter. And as always, guys, thank you for joining us. This has been fantastic.
It's been great.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Good.
Thank you all so much for having us. We really, really appreciate it. You all are amazing, and thank you for keeping me company on all my flights.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
Audio wise, we don't go with him.
No.
We are available.
Yeah. And there you have it. Some more things to think
about.
Lads,
aren't they?
Cheers, Ben. Cheers, Alan.
Has it made you think a little bit about what you're going to be doing, Tony and Dan?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so. We're very much in like making our bed before we jump in it, if you see what I mean. If that's a bit of a shit metaphor, but
that's what you should do anyway, isn't it?
But we're very much about preparing the ground first.
You've got to do the old if you fail to prepare stuff.
Yeah.
I mean,
even if the look or reputation of your things is rough and ready, no one should ever see how well put together.
There's ways of getting people excited about your comic.
Yeah.
Sticking a couple of little images up or talking about what happens in it and getting excited about it. I think part of it for me is getting people excited.
Yeah, that old school kind of getting excited for a comic coming out and hyping people up. And when the tribute stuff does come out, because they're so kind of unique to what's on the market, when it does come out, it's great. It's really new and fresh. And
we got it's a real sort of spread of different things we've got coming out. One of them's prose, so we'll see. Yeah.
We're starting up a mailing list because that seems to be the way just to stay in touch on TBH stuff, because just to not like message them every other day talking about a load of fraff, but like maybe like twice a month saying we've got this coming up, we're working on this, and just keep sort of in touch with the fan base. We did put on the socials some asking about crowdfunding, their experience with it, and how they're getting on with it. And the aforementioned Joey Oliveira said something. He said it's so important to have a newsletter. With social media algorithms constantly pushing your content down and paid ads up, you're always going to be fighting a losing battle. Social media is important as a presence for people, for you to discover or you to find you or follow you after you pick up your book at a comic shop or a comic convention. A newsletter subscriber is much more likely to convert and support crowdfunders after you've warmed them up with behind the scenes and excitement for the latest book that you have.
Exactly what we were saying there,
isn't it?
Yeah.
Yep. I'm always searching Kickstarter for comics and searching recently added to see new and upcoming comics and also get notifications to creators I follow that also back a project too. When I first started creating and crowdfunding back in 2017, there used to be around 150 to 170 comic projects live at any one time. At the back end of last year, the current live projects on Kickstarter for comics was reaching up to 330 to 340. It's harder than ever to rise your head above the top without building your audience and online presence first. But that's fantastic advice, Jory, there. And that's the man who knows what he's talking about because he's in those trenches fighting those fights.
Yeah.
We've got one from Recon and Little at @SeanWood_writer. Post on every platform as much as I can. Go on podcasts, trying to get review sites and constantly look at what everyone else is doing. Try to emulate what I think is working. The only thing I'd caveat add to that is there's a lot of times I look at Kickstarters and it's like they've gone off a template of how to build their campaign. And it's just like, now you get this. And then it's like, oh, if you like X, Y, and Z, you're like this. Here's a couple of pages. Do you know what I mean? Like sometimes that feels very formulaic and you're like, as everyone's reading the same fucking notes here and building their campaigns exactly the same way.
Yeah.
I guess that's the trouble when something works, everyone's going to emulate it, and then by that reason it won't work because everyone's doing the same thing. It's a tricky one. Match drop, messy comics. I'm pretty much done with crowdfunding. Too many people have burned me or on their behavior on social media has turned me off. I'll back it up if it's finished. Looks good, or the person is going to see you next Tuesday. Generally speaking, I think crowdfunding is a band-aid on a sucking chest wound of comics. It's fine for the hobbyists to see their projects made, but not for a long-term business model for anyone trying to make a living. I'd like to see publishers adopt the manga model or produce size of the books the size of trades for manga prices and sell them at checkout counters, big box stores, and anywhere where you can buy books. Well, as we alluded to in that conversation there, the fact that the bigger companies are using that suggests that maybe they're kind of a bit unsure.
Yeah, that band-aid thing, may be true for them.
Unsure on where they're going and where to hedge their bets. I mean, put it to you guys, if you was in one of the big comic companies and someone said to you, like, we need to kind of radically change what we're going to do for the future and how we're going to get our books into people's hands, personally, I think I'd just kind of blow my cheeks out thinking, I have no idea.
I think as well, I think as soon as we hear, I don't mean general comics people, I think the three of us, if we hear that IDW are putting a book out on Kickstarter, we do tend to go, don't we, a bit, you know?
I agree, because it's kind of
multi-million-pound company.
How much faith have you got in your product when you're kind of like, you're kind of taking it, well, if it doesn't make it, we don't have to make it. If it doesn't make the money, we don't have to print it and stuff like that. It's like you're kind of hedging your bets, and it for me, it doesn't show much faith in the book you're putting out. Whereas if a smaller creator doing that, I can totally get on board with you, because that's the way the world works.
That's almost like a historic feeling now that we've had so many do it. I think obviously the Keanu Reeves book Berserker was the big one, wasn't it? Of which there are 2 trades in the prizes for the raffle, by the way.
Hey, there you go. That later.
Yeah, so it is a proven way to earn lots of money, isn't it?
But like I said, it's kind of capitalism, and if they can make their money doing that, they're going to do that.
Yeah, who am I to say they can't do it?
Kickstarter won't knock them back because they're bringing millions and millions of dollars to their platform.
Yeah, my criticism isn't going to stop them doing it.
No, but I think it's a valid criticism, and I can see both sides of it.
Yeah, me too, actually. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Discuss with both sides.
Yeah. Lots of things to think about in terms of crowdfunding. It's not as simple as it looks.
No.
You know? And
the real work comes in when you got to start fucking shipping the bastards.
Yeah,
yeah.
But above all else, make that fucking comic.
Yeah,
that's the most important thing.
That's it.
If you just got one issue of it, it'll make you happy.
Yeah.
Just a quick pro tip for doing, if you need somewhere to put your, say for example, you're oversubscribed, you think, oh, I've got all these envelopes and stuff. A cheap place to rent a room for the day is the public library. They'll do your room.
Okay.
That's a great place to go. You're worried about, I can't really do it in my front room. We haven't got my grand's there. We need to find somewhere to do it. Libraries. Yeah.
Rent a room, library. Get maybe a couple of the co-contributors to the book
along.
Get together
They're wives or husbands. Get them along. A bucket of coffee. You can do it. Yeah, that's what we did last time. Really good.
There you go.
Nice. Speaking of Kickstarters and beyond, do we have any shout-outs this week, gents?
Yeah, I got a couple. So I met up this week with creator, listener, supporter, and now buddy of mine, Hal Weaver. I discovered his comics in the Ugly Mug anthology series, and he brought me a copy of his comic, Reluctant Sadist. He's just messaged me to say that you can buy his comics in Gosh at the moment. So go and have a look. Really interesting experimental comics. Really interesting dude. He and I are men of a certain age and sat there and put the world to right over a pizza. You can find him at Weaver Works, WERX, weaverworks.blogspot.com, and find out more of his work. Interesting guy, Hal. He's also a bit of a part-time actor and kind of rediscovered his love of making comics in his 50s. And got back into it. Really cool. Yeah, there you go. My second one is sign up for the landing page on Kickstarter for Ragtime Soldier. This is the successor to Charlie's War, written by Pat with art by Gary Welsh. If you're going on the Slack, consider joining the Awesome-Creators channel. Aaron Rackley, our buddy, is creating an app for creators with an index. It's a sort of index of creators on there. I know a lot of people have stuck their hat in the ring for that one. And also, if you're on YouTube, go and look at the Monster Bomb Club, which is Dan Charnley's new YouTube channel. It looks great. I've just seen one of the episodes is drawing monsters from Doctor Who, so it's going to be right on my street. And Dan's great. We're going to see Dan in a couple of weeks. Yeah. There you go. Another one?
Dan, what you got?
I've got a couple. The first one being the aforementioned Joey Oliveira. He's got a book, The Passenger of U-977, a horror graphic novel. A mysterious passenger aboard the U-977 plunges its crew into terror on a 66-day submerged journey. World War II ends, but their nightmare begins. That's got about another week on it. That looks great. The art looks absolutely fantastic on this one. It's kind of got like a watercolor pen and ink approach. Looks fantastic. The sea scenes, without the U-boat going through the water here, looks amazing. I think this is a defo back. Go check that one out. Aaron Rackley is doing a comic at the moment called Serial Hunter. It's updating on Substack. So you go to aaronrackley.substack.com. Art by Keiron Squires. I'm not sure what the update schedule was, and that was his page a week or 2 pages a week, or how it's going. But you can sign up there for free and read the comic. Do go check that one out.
I've signed up. Yeah.
Hey, nice one. I'm working on a cover for that. We've got the aforementioned the Press Guardian and the Clock. Pulp classic heroes return together for the first time. 2 iconic pulp heroes join forces to battle Nazis. If you love Golden Age comics, this is for you. Do go check that one out. We're just shy of hitting the $1,000 mark. Once we do, we're going to sling in a load of character stickers for everyone who's backed the campaign. Nice. We've not mentioned the 500, have we?
So but we will. What 500? Episode 500. Yeah, we had a laugh about it last week, but episode 500 is just around the corner. Dan, what are the details for it?
Marquis de Cornwallis, Bloomsbury, the 500, 25th of the 1st, 25, 12 noon, 31 Marchmont Street, London, WC1N1AP.
12 till 5.
12 till 5.
If you're there after 5, we probably will be about, but you'll need to message us to find us.
There will be a recording of the pod. There will be a quiz. There will be a raffle, and there will be a lot of laughs. A lot of laughs.
How much did it cost again to get in?
It's free.
It costs absolutely nothing. So please come along, spend time with us, have a drink or two, buy
a private dance,
get some grub.
Yeah. I'm your private dancer.
Buy me some chips. Yeah. Anyway, I'm only joking. Other pub foods are available.
And finally, 500 Marcus de Cornwallis.
Oh, don't forget there's t-shirts if you can make it, or if you can't make it, go to ACP Gear on Redbubble, and there's a t-shirt you can buy if you want to, if you're coming along, and there's a t-shirt you can buy if you can't make it as well. Yeah. So
if you can't make it, or if you just want a sticker, or if you just want
or a badge,
badge.
Get a sticker for your face, wherever you want to put it.
Get a sticker, put it on your face, and then post it online.
And then run into a wall.
No, don't do that. Don't do that.
Stick but of course, someone.
These shirts, we're going. The Redbubble store is going to stay up afterwards, but the shirts are only available until the 25th, and then
get pulled.
Actually, other shirts are available.
Yeah, actually, 24th. We'll probably switch it off to around the 24th. I guess the limited edition.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I guess they can buy. They can get that. I wasn't at the 500 one afterwards because
a week afterwards or something.
Yeah. We'll keep that. We'll figure this off.
Yeah,
off
that's boring, isn't it?
Now we just got to recommend some comics. Tony, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, my first one, Won't You Be My Saviour, written by Joseph Sieracki with a raft of artists. I'll tell you about in a minute. We were chatting about it. I think we need to have Joe on. Joe's been in a couple of comics that we've recommended over the last year or so. Vince, you recommended A Letter to Joe, which is the wartime one with Kelly Williams.
Yeah, very powerful stuff that was. Yeah.
At a top shelf, good book that. Yeah. The other one I recommended, I'm going to say about 6 months ago, was Captain Suave, also with Kelly Williams actually. A couple of our favourite books actually, and he's also done Ghosts of Science Past at Humanoids with super hot Jesse Lonergan, who is a great artist. So I haven't read that one, so I should be looking that one out. It's the comic. For anyone who listened last week, I alluded to someone who said they've sent me a comic just so they can read one of mine, so we could sort of swap comics. And there was no pressure for me to review or recommend this book, but I decided because I enjoyed it so much, I would anyway. A number of reasons for that. He's gathered some really good indie comic creators in this, and some hot names. So here's some of the names: Mark Laszlo, Paul B. Rainey. So Paul is like the hotness at the moment, isn't he? We've known Paul for years.
Yeah.
Josh Bayer, I'm a massive Josh Bayer fan, even though this is only a single page. Josh Simmons, Gary Drum, Lane Lloyd, Ben Passmore, Brian Box Brown. I think he's not Box Brown anymore, is he? Brian Box Brown, I guess. Buster Moody, our old buddy, Lucas Kowalczyk, who we really rate his stuff. We've been talking about his book since we started.
Oh, yeah, he's done so much over the past
crazy
years.
Good, yeah. Kelly Williams, something called Hyena Hell, and Michael Sweater. And it's... tells the story in chapters and pin-ups by these different artists of what it would be like to have Jesus as your next-door neighbour in modern-day America. And I'm going to read a line from you. Jesus Christ is my neighbour. He's a total prick. It's a really good concept, especially for me, as I was unfortunately brought up as a Catholic. It's great to see this world. I'm going to talk a little bit about Paul, because I think Paul Rainey is somebody who it's great to see him being... people valuing him now. I've got a load of his OG. I think he was at the first Nottingham we did. We see him all these. He was at that Comica where we met Vince.
Yeah,
he was at that.
Yeah.
So he's been in the trenches for a long time, and he's got Why Don't You Love Me? People fucking love that book, and it got nominated for a lot of awards. And There's No Time Like the Present, which is there's a signing at Gosh on the 29th of March for that one. So make sure you look at that. He does a couple of stories in here, and I think he's probably the most suited to the subject matter for me. There's this neighbour of Jesus who is eternally pissed off, and he asks Jesus not to lay naked in a paddling pool on his front lawn. And Jesus stands up naked, or drops his shorts, and crop dusks the neighbour, says whatever, and does a fart and walks off. Another one, Mary and Joseph come visiting Jesus, and we get a lot of "you're not my real dad" jokes. That's quite funny. They walk in the front room, and Jesus' front room is just covered in crap and old pizza boxes and stuff. And Joseph says, "You need to tidy this up." So Jesus snaps his fingers and the room tidies itself. And he goes, "Look at that. That was immaculate." The Joseph and Mary are sitting at the dinner table. Box Brown does this one, and he does a reverse Canaan on Jesus, on Joseph, by turning his wine into water. Thought it was quite funny. The neighbour is is always getting in the shit. Nothing can go right for him. It's a bit like Love Thy Neighbour. Do you remember that terrible British TV series?
God,
It was always going wrong for the white bloke. And He keeps saying, trying to get Jesus to behave or tell him off or something, and then he's going, "Oh fucking God," like that. Whereupon God hits him with a lightning bolt and stuff like that. Yeah, it's really good. There's the Kowalczyk one is really good. I like the way the wind feels on my nipples, Jesus says to the neighbour. And Kowalczyk and Joseph attribute that to Proverbs 5:19. I don't think that's true, although I haven't checked the Bible as whether that quote is directly out of the Bible. There's one with Kelly Williams where Judas Iscariot turns up and he finds that he's got sort of common ground with this neighbor who hates Jesus, and he says they hate him because Jesus has gone woke and he needs to be stopped. There's, we talk about this about anthologies, always have like a weaker story, don't they? That's the nature of it.
Stories, there's going to be one that's going to be weakest.
Yeah, and this has got like 8 in it or something. So, but they're all bangers, man. They are all bangers in this. Loved it. So go and find I Am Joe's tweet on Twitter, is his Twitter account. And you can find him at on his website, Joseph, and then I'll spell you his last name, Sieracki. josephsieracki.com. You can find it. I think he's not sure what he's going to do with it at the moment. And honestly, I'm reviewing it to try and encourage him to put it out so that people can buy it.
I need to read this because this sounds hilarious.
Yeah. He's doing a second issue already, and I think he said in his email to me he's not sure what he's going to do with it at the moment. But like, fucking release it, because I want a hard copy of this. And I think we should book him to come on because he sounds like he's got the right sense of humor.
Yeah, man, that sounds great.
Yeah, so this is called "Won't You Be My Saviour," my first one.
Nice.
Did you get a chance to read each other's stories in Grimm's?
Yes, very good, man. Yeah. Like you say, they're very different, aren't they?
Yeah, very different.
Yeah, and I like the way you bookended it with us.
Yeah,
that's nice.
We always talk about
Vince's story is quite meta, so it felt like it to go at the end is like.
Yeah, to give it a sort of counterpoint to everything that's happened. Yeah. And mine's got a dong in it, so you put it up front.
Yeah, that's great. It's a kind of
very shocking horror that was.
Nod to Red Rooms, isn't it? T.
We homage Piscor a bit in that, don't we? Yeah, we mention him.
A lot of fun to do both comics. It was great stuff.
Dan, what do you want to recommend?
So this is one of the books we got sent in. I then retroactively found that it was on Global. We're just doing a bit of research about the title. The chap uploaded it. It's called Grim Reefer. So, and the logo is pretty cool. The Reefer is made out of smoke, and the Grim Reaper, aka the Grim Reefer, is holding like a scythe made of smoke, a green sort of shroud, and he's got a joint on the go with red eyes, which is like it's ticking all the boxes there. That's great stuff. That's great. I just put my iPad down and the comic disappeared. So give me a sec.
It's always good when that happens.
Yeah. Dan.
Yeah.
You can see the porn in his eyes.
It's been sitting there all effing night, and then the moment I look at it. So script and letters by Thatcher E. Cleveland, art by Claudia Muniz, colours by Cote Caravaggio, and logo design by Alex Torrejon. It's classic horror movie trope with there's a violent criminal who's been driven around by his second cousin. The police are after them. The violent criminal has just committed some heinous murders in the pursuit of a robbery. They get chased off road into an old farmhouse where the car crashes. The cousin runs off, leaving the mass murderer on his own, and he struggles into this farmhouse where there's a gun battle with the police, and he's killed. And as the paramedics are on site, there's one of them smoking a spliff, and he makes a phone call saying, "Look, I found this remote farmhouse that might be a good place to set up our little farm." So they set up a cannabis farm where this mass murderer's been killed, and from that point on, whoever smokes the weed cultivated on this place where this guy died gets possessed by this maniac and starts enacting his revenge against all those that were responsible for his demise. In the first issue, he goes after someone who owed him money. Obviously, the top of that list is his second cousin, who ran out as their car crashed and ran off and left him to the sort of to the police. The main character, oh God, I can't forget the name now, but they have sort of a bit of a redemption arc, in as much that I was only driving the guy. I didn't realize he was doing all that stuff when I picked him up, because he picks him up at the crime scene, not realizing he's killed all these people, and he's just kind of like a bit of a wayward soul trying to get on his feet. So over the course of the story, it's 4 issues long. I presume they're going to get a bit of character evolution there where he comes right. But it's a lovely little concept for a comic.
It's a great idea. Yeah,
I can see why I did well. It's kind of thing you'd browse Amazon in the horror section, like looking for a film or Netflix, and then you'd see that come up and you go, oh yeah, that sounds good. I'll give that a crack. Like I said, you can read it on Global. The art's really nice, energetic, lots of sort of the explosive crashes, sound effects, gunfights. Yeah, I recommend it. It's a right fun old read. I enjoyed myself.
Good stuff, man.
One of those comics you start reading it. Oh, I finished it. It's great.
Is he an English creator or is he American? Or...
I think it's American.
Okay.
I think American.
British, rather. Sorry. Yeah.
They've all got their Instagram. If you go on the Global Comics, they've got their Instagram links in the comic credits, and you can go check out some more of their stuff. Unfortunately, it looks like issue 2 didn't crowdfund. They tried at the end of last year, so they might be restructuring,
considering,
organising, going back at it. Maybe listen to the show. Got some.
Nice, yeah.
That's not what we just said.
The one I picked from the vault is one that has been 2 issues that have been crowdfunded. We got a chance to see the first one, which is a book called A Strange Ranger from Plague Doctor Press. The creators of this is Mark Bell is the writer, and Jonson Carbonell is the pictures. That's their credits on the Kickstarter campaign. It's issue 1, the one I read, is a 32-page full-colour supernatural adventure comic about Agatha, a rookie park ranger responsible for a mysterious forest full of inexplicable creatures, who has to overcome self-doubt and forces beyond her control to find a lost child. Enter the magical world of Dusk River Park. Now, immediately, this is it's an all-ages supernatural adventure comic. That's what they set out to do. And it seems to be, from the looks of the second issue as well, which I believe is going to be delivering later this year. I think March, April time. The backers will be getting their printed copies of that. There were two reasons I was interested in this one. One, because the look of it is very much, it's got that sort of animated cartoon kind of feel. Immediately, it's got the feel of an all-ages book. It's got that sort of... What's the name of the... It feels like a Boom book, if I was to describe it. Is it Boom Box is the kids' version? Yeah. It's something that could sit quite comfortably with them. The artwork is absolutely on point for what it is. I love the artwork, the crispness of the line, the colours. I think Carbonell... I think he's worked with children's book illustration and stuff before, but everything's so clear, and because it's a park ranger, the colours and the trees and stuff, it's just really well handled. But full on inks and like colours and stuff. We're not talking watercolours here. And there are some shots that are very much the beauty of the place. You are looking at the beauty of this place. One thing that caught my attention about this was obviously a few years ago I was planning to do a strange story about a park ranger.
Okay. Of course you were. I forgot about that.
Yeah. Indigo Park, which I was working on. So I was like, oh, it's interesting how, like, I thought, is this a similar sort of idea? And it kind of is, but it is. Okay. It's obviously in its own different thing. I did look at this and go, oh, that's so lovely how they've rendered that. My stuff's in a completely different sort of style, but it was almost like I had an idea for something that I thought that'd be quite good to do, and I'm really pleased that this idea is out there in the world, because it's because it also gives me that sort of there is, other people have thought about it and wanted to do it, and national parks and stuff like that, those huge, beautiful places of nature. There's obviously some weird stuff going in. It's rife for weird, supernatural or ethereal. All kinds of folkloric You could go full on horror, or you could do something like this, which is a little bit more friendlier. So I got through the first issue of this tale, which it sort of ties up a story, the lost child. Spoilers, they find the child, but it's a setup for other stuff coming forward. It seems like they've got a few issues of ideas. The only thing about this that sort of knocked it back for me, and it's obviously the critical eye that we have on these things. The writing was pretty on point, and the artwork absolutely smashed it. It's the lettering knocked it back a little bit. It was almost like I felt like they would have benefited from having a proper full-on letterer to go in for some of it, and usually with the dialogue, not with sound effects, which seemed to be the work of the artist, but the lettering was like, this bubble looks a little bit, the words are a little too low in the bubble. And that's when you're a creator and you're seeing these sort of things, you notice those.
Well, when we read a lot of comics, that really can stick out, can't it? I think. Yeah.
And there's a couple of moments where, there was one moment where a bit of dialogue didn't quite work because two characters were, like, someone had started talking, then someone interrupted that talking, and then someone finished the sentence. But they were sat on opposite sides of like a campfire, so it didn't read.
You almost need a cascading for that dynamic. Almost, I think you need them to bump into each other, don't you? The balloons.
It uses a narrative perspective of there's a what do we call those voice box? Instead of this thought bubble, we have the narrative.
The narrative box.
The first person narrative of Agatha, and there is also a perspective of another person as well, who's quite important to the book. I didn't think you necessarily needed that for the other person, because the story seemed to be telling itself quite clearly. But
it's a difficult thing to do, having a story that's being told from a point of view of two people. It's difficult to pull off, I think. Yeah.
And sometimes the writer maybe would read that afterwards and think, actually, I don't need this.
And it's introducing, like, essentially the core characters, the three core characters to this, so that by the end of the issue, the fun trio that are going to go on different adventures. But maybe you didn't need to, some of the font choices and stuff. But the rest of it around it, I thought, and certainly I'm interested to see in issue 2 whether if they've spotted, there's some things that have developed, because it looks like from what I saw on the Kickstarter page of issue 2, the artist is fully rounded. Do you know what I mean? So they're looking at the pages without any speech bubbles, almost clarifies it as well. Because when I was looking at the pages, they showed the previews of what the pages look like, and I was like, that's lovely looking work. So it sort of highlighted that the thing that did detract it maybe was the lettering,
right? Yeah,
a little bit.
Interesting.
So it's interesting. So I am looking forward to seeing the second issue. I really intrigued to see where this story goes, because it's also a lovely, fun story, I think, which is good for kids as well. Strange Ranger, Plague Doctor Press. You can find them online at plaguedoctorpress.com and on Instagram, etc. But good stuff. I was glad I came across that. It was nice, something a bit different as well. Normally I'm reading stuff about monsters being absolutely mutilated and people being torn asunder. So it was like, oh, just lovely.
We never know what we get in the review pile, do we? That comes through. That's the good thing about it. It can be from anywhere.
Yeah. Tony, what's your final one?
My final one is back to the boys from Black Ink Comics. Junked issue 1, aka the kill-all cure to abject misery. Adults only. This is kind of their flagship anthology. We had the 0 issue, and this is now the first full issue. We've talked a lot about these guys over the last 6 months, but I really do enjoy. I know, Dan, you mentioned it in your best of, but Dan Hughes, Leslie Wenlock, Paul Courtjohn, and Dylan Henty in this one, and we get the return of their, I'm going to call her sexier than Tharg host, Callie Blaster, who, in typical Black Ink comic style, they've got on the inside cover. You always used to get Tharg or whoever the horror host was on the inside cover, and she's reading a comic and she just looks pissed off, like judging it for like, what is this crap? It's a bit like that look on her face. It's very good. And that's actually a photograph, so it's a real person who I believe is called Miss Ubel. That's her name. Opens really strong with a story called Gary Swandale Does Snuff. He doesn't mean the sniffing thing, by Dylan Henty. Gary's been made redundant and he really needs money, so him and his mate down the pub called Colin decide to make a snuff movie. So they kidnap someone who turns out to be Mike, who they know, But Mike's quite understanding, and he kind of understands their predicament, and he kind of helps them out with it a bit as he's going along. He says, "No, you need to be more violent and stuff like that." He's saying to them, "Why are you doing this? Why don't you cut a finger off or something?" And he gives them quite a lot of advice in fucking himself up. There's Dan Hughes does a story. Dan Hughes got a couple of crackers in this. One of them's called Window Watching, about a voyeur who enjoys watching women ironing. That's a niche, isn't it?
Yeah, that's quite a niche.
Holophobic breathwork. That's about a cult leader. That's pretty good. That's from Dan as well. Paul Courtjohn does Sparkle Horse. You're like this. It's about a brony who enjoys fucking his My Little Pony, only for it to become sentient. Nostalgia, murder, and humping. That's good.
Degenerate
these boys,
there,
these are not. These boys are not right, are they? Yeah. The Mr. Fake Guy is by Leslie Wenlock, and is tired of being bored with autobiocomics. He decides to get a fake name and make up dirty comics, and this throws itself into the nonsense we see in small press. This is like clearly him getting it out of his system, and I'm there for it. Brilliant. Absolutely. Talks about Instagram and web comics by people who can't draw and have zero ideas, pushing politics, this sort of thing, but it's done really funny. The four guys in this must have had such a laugh putting it together, but they're all good cartoonists as well. There's no like scratchy nonsense. This is like solid cartooning, and it's really funny. You need to get on the Black Ink coach around this one. Insta black_ink_comics. Again, etsy.com/shop/Black Ink Comics, or blackinkcomics.com. And I think this comes out today or tomorrow. I think it's certainly, you'll be able to get it if you listen to this podcast. Junk Tissue one, just the snuff one. As soon as I opened it and saw Gary Swandale does snuff, I thought, here we go, we're off. Nice. Yeah, really good.
Nice.
That's my second one.
There you go. Tons of comics to check out. Add to your wish list. Go online and find out more about, so you can be ready for when the next issue drops. And thank you very much for listening. Thanks to Alan and Ben for joining us from Green Arch Comics. Check out their Kickstart before it ends.
Yep.
Around the time of the 500. But if there's anything on this show that you want us to discuss further, or if there's any other topics, any questions you have, we're talking about. We're setting up for the year. We've got a cracking lineup of new voices, new guests of all kinds over the next few months.
Same old hosts.
Yeah. Same old hosts, but new, fantastic voices from comics to check out, and we're going to be trying to find out as much as we can about making these fucking books, and also getting these books into your hands that you've never heard of before. So if there's anything else you want us to talk about, get in touch with us in several different ways. You can email us awesomecomicspod@gmail.com. Follow us on social media at awesomecomicspod on Instagram, at the awesomepod on X. Thank you for listening to us, whether it was on the website awesomecomics.podbean.com. If you want to buy some gear, go to acpgear.redbubble.com.
By that we mean t-shirts.
Yeah, getting gear.
ACP
not
gear.
Class A's.
No. Comics are a drug, and we're hooked on them. And
like love.
And you're hooked on listening to this show, hopefully.
Yeah.
And on the feeling.
Whether you heard it on Apple, if you did, leave a review and helps get the word out.
Thanks to the two people who left reviews. We've had reviews in the last couple of weeks, you know.
Have we really? Oh, I need to check up. Yeah. I'm not one of those people who's constantly on the look at,
No, I'm not either. I think
we used to be back in the day. Let's be honest. We used to be. We used to look at the numbers. We used to look at the reviews.
Yeah.
But now, but we really, really do appreciate it, people. So
didn't mention that about crowdfunding. That don't get in the habit of looking at how your campaign's getting on every 10 minutes.
Yeah, no, I'm bad.
Therein lies madness.
Oh, someone backed. Oh, someone dropped out.
Yeah. Oh, God. Yeah. But it's not madness to listen to us, though, whether it be on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Stitcher, Podnose, Podknife. What other networks are you on, Tony?
We're on the pod. What taxes do you pay on that grease?
Jesus. There's always an uncomfortable pause after every time he does this. Now, have you know that? Yeah. It's the cheeky look in his eye. And yes, where can people find us online, etc.? Go on, Tony. I was about to say something, and then my brain just literally short-circuited.
Neverendingthing.com, or I'm now on Substack, and I've written down what it is. TonyEz.substack.com. There you go. And we're about to have our own Substack if we can organise it.
Yeah, we're figuring that out, and we'll probably have a longer discussion about those sort of mediums in the future.
I've got to speak to you about something after we finish, Vince. Don't go without me speaking to you.
Okay. You really should see a doctor about that. Dan, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter, aka X, at Vanguard Comic, and you can read Vanguard at vanguardcomic.com. I'm working on the next issue. You've already seen some. You guys have seen some of the cover I've started on, and hopefully as soon as the script's done and I can get working on pages, I'll be posting it up. So keep your eyes peeled for that.
Nice. You can find me on social media at Jester Diablo. Thank you very much for listening, everyone. Join us next week where we're going to have the Don in the house to talk about all things. Probably we'll get into a bit of a vintage comics discussion, I would think. So
he's in charge of the raffle.
Yeah, he's in charge of the raffle. Richard Sheaf is joining us to talk about the raffle as we get excited about 500. But we won't be, perhaps we'll be discussing about that. But we'll be discussing a whole lot of comic talk. So join us next week for that. Until then, from ACP Towers, Dan, Tony, and myself, we're off to have a little bubble bath together. And obviously it's a nice Radox muscle soak. Lovely. And while we do
knots.
Have a love to work out each other's knots. And while we're doing that, have a brilliant week. Read loads of comics. Keep making loads of comics. And until then, what else should they do, guys?
Stay awesome.
Nice. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Balloon knot.